What's up, LEGO builders? My LEGO city needs energy if it wants to continue battling the Protectorate mechs. And I need to figure out what power is best, such as solar, wind, or the complaining of an overprivileged society. There's true unlimited power. I also need to fit this mighty facility into my overcrowded city. I've got my work cut out for me now, so don't forget to open fire on that like button and let's get building. The power plants are located in the industrial complex, which makes up the third and final zone of my mock, hidden away from the fancy high-rises and glittering skyscrapers of the tech district. This is where the nitty-gritty work of keeping a city alive happens. Stuff like generating power, purifying water, and other difficult but necessary jobs. The underground train stations are located near here as well, making this the unofficial heart of Moenia Prime. Per the rest of the city, the power plant is up on a large plateau. So large, in fact, it will probably be one of the biggest, if not the biggest one I build. My goal with this one too is to make it look a bit more weathered and industrial with more rust and algae growing around. So I should have put some dark orange and olive green designs in the walls, but I didn't think of that until just now. In an effort to be more efficient with my dark bluish gray bricks, I'm going to build the walls in slabs, sticking one of the yellow panels in the middle of each one, and as a bonus, some of them have graffiti, which will make this whole area even more realistic, since for some reason nothing attracts a graffiti artist like an industrial zone. For how anti-war LEGO is, they seem to be very pro-vandalism, because I've come across so many graffiti pieces during my journeys through Bricklink, and I'm here for it. These pieces are really going to elevate the aesthetic of the city. The slabs will go in between the pillars, forming the sidewalls, with a layer of brick running across the top, connecting everything together.
Yeah.
This plateau is meant to be just the corner of a massive power plant full of large generators and other cool looking electrical builds. This way I can focus on building one or two large structures surrounded by smaller stuff instead of trying to cram the entire plant on the plateau and being forced to shrink everything down. This one will have the same plate overhang to give me some extra room to build, and the middle will be plated off with these glorious 16 by 16 bricks. I know I've said it 100 times, but this is probably one of the greatest building purchases I've made in the last 2 years. They require less filler brick and are much sturdier than the old plates I used, which now sit in a corner gathering dust talking about the glory days of Utapau and Cato Nemoidia when they were top dogs of my parts collection. But by this point I'm getting pretty tired of working on the plateau, so let's switch gears to something smaller and much more interesting. Before I started building, I had to decide how exactly this plant makes electricity, and given the lack of space and presence of tall buildings, I figured a wind farm or solar panels just wouldn't be super effective. So I decided to go the hydroelectric route. Problem is, there aren't any rivers cutting through Moenia Prime, so I had to get a little creative. I've seen these round silo looking things in hydroelectric plants before and decided to build some and fill them with water to create a bunch of water-based electrical generators. This was one of my first attempts. The ball joints used to get the angled shape create gaps in between each of the panels that had to be covered with tile, and each panel was pretty wide, creating an almost octagonal looking structure. A good start to a round build, but not what I had in mind. I kept everything the same height, but narrowed the panels down from 6 studs wide to 4, shrinking the amount of flat surface area created by each one, which looked much better. Now that I had a solid panel design, I started adding weathering to some of them in the form of dark orange and olive green. This plant is well maintained, but anybody who has worked around machinery knows it gets dirty and weathered over time, especially in areas that don't have a moving component like a sidewall or hopper. The silos will also be numbered to help designate them because, you know, world building, and this is silo 10 because that's an easy number to build in LEGO. I'm going to use the longer ball joint piece for a little more flexibility and connect them to the middle of the panels instead of at the edges. These two things combined should create less of a gap between each one and give me just the right angle needed for a rounder build. This prototype was doing everything I needed so far, and I was cranking out those panels, but as is often the case when in the middle of a big build, I started to run low on pieces, specifically plate and ball joints. Because while this design was coming together very well, as you can see, it was using an insane amount of ball joints. 2 3-piece ball joints per panel, and I need like 19 of those. This is when fate stepped in and said, hold my blue milk. The weekend before starting this build, I went to the LEGO store just to see what's happening and check out the pick-a-brick wall. Every single one of the ball joint pieces I needed was there in large supply, as well as these 4x6 dark bluish gray plates. Since when does the PAB stack wide plate and gray? On top of having pieces I really needed, there were also some cool random ones, like these lime green stems which scream LEGO Star Wars mod. I also snagged some of these trans purple core cylinders that matched the glass panels on the sides of my bridges, so I knew they would come in handy. And the cherry on top, yellow molded girder pieces. I already talked about the importance of yellow pieces in industrial builds, so I knew these were coming home with me. Lego miracle aside, and armed with reinforcements, the rest of the silo flew together. I want to have some large pipes connected to the sides of the silo to either drain or fill it, and I'm kind of tired of gray, so I decided to build these in dark orange. Maybe it's paint, maybe it's rust, who knows? Just make sure you're up to date on your tetanus shot if you want to do some parkour around here. Now that the silo pipes are all done, I want to put everything on the plateau so I can start laying out the power plant and its many features to figure out what exactly I have room for. These foundations always take me longer than I think they will, and this one was even bigger than the last. It's basically done though, I just need to plate off the backside, and unfortunately I was one yellow brick short, so I'll need to eventually replace this wall panel. I'm still trying to decide if I should add a system of wall-mounted pipes or not, but no intriguing designs have come to mind as of yet, so for now I'm going to leave it as is. The silo was such a pain to build. I spent almost half a day designing the shape, testing out the right placement for the ball joints, trying to find the right width for the panels, paired with the correct angle to create a round structure. But I'm glad I stuck with it though, because this looks way better than the original prototype I was going to use. I wanted something immense and impressive dominating this plateau, and I'm not going to have just one but two of these next to each other generating electricity for the city. The next step is to fill this one with water and build the power generating part that sits in the middle using those trans purple cylinders from earlier. I also want to build the walkway that runs along the sides and juts out into the middle of the cylinder. Unfortunately, that's where my ideas stop. Only about half the plateau is covered and I have no idea what to put on this side. I want something that contrasts with these structures, maybe some tall rectangular buildings or large electrical transformers, these, not these, that would help safely transfer and adjust electricity. I also have this landing pad that could sit above everything on some pillars, but I'm not really sure how to integrate it in with the rest of the power plant in a way that makes sense. So if you guys have any ideas for what I should include on this side of the power plant, drop them below in the comments. Luckily, populating the plateau is future Ethan's problem. I get to keep working on the silo. There needs to be some kind of power generating component in it, or else this is essentially a giant swimming pool, and based on the algae growing on the sides, it's about as clean as Yoda's swamp. I made this magnetic cylinder that sits in the middle of the silo and when activated uses magnetism to cause the water to turn in a circle around it, generating electricity. I had the thought to light this up because it would make sense that this part glows, and I'm using a lot of trans-colored parts that really amplify light. It was pretty easy to light it up, but there were some problems with this idea. The silo is very deep and will need to be filled with parts of some kind representing water, so once the cylinder and battery pack go in, there's no way for me to get to the on-off switch because this large panel will cover up the bottom. I need this panel because it's acting like a lid with a hole in the middle. It fits around the cylinder and allows me to pour in these trans blue bricks, which provide a very watery effect. That way, all I need to do is pour in a shallow layer of water bricks to make it look like the silo is full. But this essentially traps the battery box out of my reach unless I remove all the water. While I ponder on this matter, it's time to build a catwalk. Those yellow girder pieces are going to be support pillars holding a walkway for people to get around and work on the tops of the silos. Girders and walkways are a must for any power plant mock, and this will help fill up space. Plus, having the walkways high in the air instead of on the ground is going to look much cooler. You know I packed these things full of guardrails because the last thing the leaders of Moenia Prime need is a class action lawsuit filed against them for unsafe working conditions while trying to fight off a robot invasion. I also thought it would be cool for a couple of walkways to have computers at the end connected to the trans purple cylinders in the middle of the silos. This computer even has a little CV radio / walkie-talkie type thing for pranking the homies on a slow Friday afternoon. When it comes to building cities, this is my favorite type of thing to make. I like skyscrapers and other cool buildings, but factories, refineries, plants, and other industrial builds are what really capture my imagination. In the future, I'd love to build some of the industrial megacities that are on the continent of Kokundra and feed Moenia Prime and the other cities. These are exactly what they sound like. City-sized factories churning out everything from cars and tanks to ice cream makers. Drop a comment below if you'd like me to explore some of these other megacities after I'm done with Moenia Prime. It's a city-focused update, but I want to include one small protectorate build. This is a harvester droid, first seen in the standalone story of the attack on Shepard Base I told a few weeks back. These are a new addition to the robot's arsenal and are proving to be very dangerous because they can sneak into places like this hydroelectric plant and cause all kinds of chaos for the HADF forces. The reason this plateau doesn't have any pillars on these two sides is because it continues back this way where the rest of the power plant is, since you'd probably need more than just 2 electric silos to power a city the size of a small country. So if you see a plateau that has pillars on all sides, it means that's the entire thing versus a partial one like this. I made good progress on the silo. It looks like it actually does something now, and the walkways running in between help sell the industrial power plant vibe, and I like having a way for workers to walk out over the plateaus and push buttons. It makes the whole place feel more interactive. Unfortunately, the water portion still needs work. In order to cover the ball joints, I need the water line to basically sit at the top of the silo, which feels too high. You can see it peeking up over the edge, and one bad rainstorm and these are going to turn Moenia Prime into a water park. Plus, you can't even see the trans-purple generator in the middle, so I'm going to have to lower the ball joints to the middle area of the silo so I can drop the water line a few studs. That would also make the light in the middle actually visible, because as of right now, it's completely submerged and barely visible. But as is often the case in the mock building world, 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still progress. A lot more thinking and less building went into this update than I planned, but I want to make this section as impressive as possible, so I'm taking my time making sure everything is just right. I've long wanted to build some kind of large round structure, and having the sci-fi-esque trans-purple generator in the middle makes it feel more than just a generic container. I've had so much fun working on this city in my new world, but you know what else is fun? Lego Star Wars mocks, so stay tuned for next week. But that's a wrap for this update. Don't forget to let me know what you think of my city down below in the comments, and until next time, happy building.